When we're adding lime or elemental sulfur to the soil, we're really kind of changing the composition of the soil. And so those things have to move through the soil and be absorbed into the soil. Welcome back to another episode of the Lawns and Life podcast, built for DIYers who like to learn, grow, and have a little bit of fun along the way. I am your host, Devin, the DIY lawn coach. And as always, thank you so much for coming back for another week. So on this episode of the Lawns and Life podcast, we are going to go over the basics of soil pH. All right. I'm going to answer some really popular questions that I get. Actually, got one from a viewer, and that's actually why I'm making this episode this week. So I just want to answer some really basic questions about soil pH. Do you need to do it? And if you do, why would you need to do it? How do you do it? When do you do it? All of that is going to be answered in today's episode. So buckle up. Let's get into the episode. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for coming back for another week. I really do appreciate it. Hope you have had an amazing week this week. So what we're going to talk about today in the podcast is all about soil pH, right? We're not going to get into the weeds too much in this episode. I want to keep things really, really simple. I am not a professional, okay? I did not go to school for this. I'm just a DIYer, but I have some basic knowledge around soil pH, and I just want to share that with you in hopes that it helps you understand pH. You really don't need to be a scientist to understand this. We're just going to go over some basic principles of soil pH. We're going to talk about maybe why you would want to adjust your pH and how you can do it, and really just kind of give you really everything that you need to know when it comes to pH. Really, you don't need to go too far into the weeds. But before we do that, let's get into this week's mindful moment.
It can be hard to slow down and notice things in a busy world. Mindful moments is where we pause for a moment to reflect on the here and now. After all, life is happening now. We simply need to take time to notice. These small yet profound experiences remind us that life is not about the destination, but the journey we take to get there.
All right, so this week's mindful moment is going to be a fun one. So you guys know I am a chef by trade, went to culinary school. I've got a 2-year culinary degree from Johnson & Wales, graduated way back in 2004. Wow, that's a long time ago. Is that 21 years ago? Yeah, wow. 21 years ago, I went to culinary school. So I want you to think about chefs, right? Like you watch chefs on TV. What do chefs say to each other all the time? Give you just a second to think about it. So when we chefs communicate, when a chef asks another chef something, how do they respond? And it's usually with, "Yes, chef." Well, have you ever wondered why we say that? Why do we answer with, "Yes, chef"? Well, I'm going to tell you that secret today. As one chef talking to another, we always answer with, "Yes, chef." And the reason that usually happens is because we're usually answering to someone who is of higher stature than us. Just like the military, we chefs have a hierarchy. We have an executive chef. Below that, you have what are called sous chefs, S-O-U-S, sous chef. And then below that, you have line cooks, prep cooks, maybe your dishwashers, that sort of thing. And whenever a chef of a higher hierarchy than you gives you an instruction, your only response to them is, "Yes, chef." And the reason why is because it's a level of trust. It's a level of obedience that you have with that chef who is really training you and teaching you and guiding you and coaching you. So just to give you an example, if I'm making a soup and my executive chef comes over to me, he tastes my soup and he goes, "Hey, Devin, I want you to add some more salt to that soup." Chef doesn't want my opinion. He knows that what I have to say really doesn't matter. My only response is, yes, chef, add more salt. If he comes back over and says, hey, I need you to add some sauteed onions to that soup, I don't get to say to him, I don't think it needs sauteed onions. I think that it's fine the way it is. Well, it's his restaurant, it's his kitchen, and it's his rules. So my only response is going to be, yes, chef. You just do it. So why am I bringing this up? Why is this even important? Why am I even rambling on about this as a mindful moment? Well, I've got a Bible right here that, you know, my chef is God. And, when God tells me to do certain things, whether it's how to live, how to spend my money, how to treat other people, how to talk to other people, God doesn't want my opinion. God told me exactly what he wants. So my response to God should be, yes, chef. I don't get to give my input. I don't get to say, I feel like this is how I should treat people, or I don't want to do that. I don't want to live that way. I want to watch what I want to watch. I want to say what I want to say. Well, God doesn't work that way. So it just kind of got me thinking about my roots as far as a chef and saying, yes, chef. And do we treat God the same way? Do we say, yes, chef, when God tells us to do something? Something that I definitely need to work on. So that's this week's Mindful Moment. Hope you guys appreciate that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. All right, so let's talk about soil pH. I guess the first question that we need to address is, do you need to adjust your soil pH? I guess let's just start with kind of the basics here. What is soil pH? Well, it's really simple. Soil pH is just a measure. pH actually stands for potential hydrogen. So it's just a measure of the alkalinity or acidity of your soil. Every plant, every living organism on this earth likes to live within a certain range of pH. Our plants are no different. Most lawns like to be between 6 and 7 on the pH scale. The lower you are on that number, the more acidic that your soil is. The higher the number, the more alkaline it is. So if it's acidic, we want to raise it. If it's alkaline, we want to lower it, okay? So how do we measure that? Well, it's really, really simple, and it's done with a soil test. And I guess the first thing I want to tell you, if you do a soil test and you get your soil pH back and it's not within that optimal range, the first thing that I want you to do is not freak out. It is okay. Obviously, if you have grass and it's growing and it's green, if your soil pH is not within that optimal range, take a deep breath. It is okay. The overarching theme here is that we just want our soil pH to be within that range. Okay. Now there are things that we do to adjust it. So if our soil is acidic, we add lime to raise the soil pH. If our soil is alkaline, we need to lower it. We're going to add elemental sulfur to it. And it's really that simple, okay? Number 2, when is the best time to adjust our soil pH? Really, there's 2 times a year that I recommend adjusting your soil pH. The first one would be fall, right when you're doing your seeding, your aeration and overseed. And the main reason for that is because usually we're aerating. So we've already poked a bunch of holes in the lawn, and that really makes room for some of that lime or elemental sulfur to fall into and kind of get worked into the soil a little bit faster. Okay, so when we're adding lime or elemental sulfur to the soil, we're really kind of changing the composition of the soil. And so those things have to move through the soil and be absorbed into the soil to take effect. The second best time, or I guess another time, which I feel is actually probably the best time to do your lime application or your elemental sulfur application, is in the middle of winter. As long as the ground's not frozen and you don't have snow on the ground, usually late winter, early spring is when I like to do it. Now, there is no wrong time. You can do it any time of the year. It's not fertilizer. It's not gonna make your lawn grow. You certainly don't have to worry about burning your lawn or anything like that. I like to do it in early spring or late winter just because that is when I haven't applied anything to the lawn. Usually we're getting snow and or a lighter rain. We're not getting those huge dumps of thunderstorms and things like we get in the summer, and that just allows that lime or elemental sulfur to just kind of soak into the lawn. So if you get a lot of snow, maybe you want to do your lime application before you get snow, because snow just melts nice and slow, and I can just see that melting into the soil and getting absorbed really, really well. All right, so those are the two best times. How do we do it? It's really, really simple. Go to your local hardware store, your big box store, purchase whatever material that you need. We're going to put it in a spreader, a broadcast spreader, and we're going to evenly spread it across our lawn. Okay, how do we know how much material we need to apply? My recommendation for you is that you get in contact with a professional. Maybe your local turf extension office would be a great solution. That would be the first place that I would go. Send them an email right now. Ask them, say, I did a soil test. My soil pH is this. I live in this part of the state. How much lime, how much elemental sulfur do I need to apply to get it within that optimal range? They'll say 60 pounds per thousand or 100 pounds per thousand, whatever that number is. Then you go to the store, you buy it, and you start spreading it out really, really evenly. I usually will water it in the first time. If I can't do that, time it around rainfall. Again, we just want to get that moving into the soil. As I mentioned in the beginning, I want you to think about this more as a goal, not necessarily a destination. All right. Your soil is always changing. The soil pH is always going up. It's always going down. There are atmospheric conditions that change the pH of our soil. So we're never going to say we finally hit it, 6.5 on the nose, I'm perfect, and it's going to stay there forever. That's not the way it works. We're just always trying to just keep it within that range. And then every year I check it. If I need to move it, I move it. If I don't, I just don't worry about it. I think there's a lot to do about soil pH. And just to kind of wrap things up, it's not something that I want you to worry about. I don't want you to make it a bigger deal than what it really is. Okay? Again, the best time to do it is either spring or fall, with spring being my particular favorite. And then the last point I want to make is just make sure that you think of this more as a goal every single year to move your pH, to that range, that 6 to 7, and not really a destination. And don't make too big a deal of it. So that's really everything that you need to know about your soil pH. All right, guys, so thank you so much for coming back for another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I answered all of your questions about soil pH. Again, this was not a deep dive. This was just let's call it 10,000 foot view of soil pH. If you have a deeper question that you want to ask, please leave that down in the comment section. I will do my best. As I mentioned, I am not a turf professional. I'm just a DIYer, but I can tell you, based on 12, 15 years worth of experience, that these are just some of the things that have worked for me and get me the results that I see. So hope you guys have an amazing week. I will see you guys next week on another episode of the Lawns and Life podcast. My name is Devin. I'm the DIY Lawn Coach, and I can't wait to see you in the lawn.